Good morning, everyone. Good morning, JMG family and supporters. Welcome to our first annual. This is the inaugural, so this better be good. I don't want to put too much pressure on everybody, but this is the first one. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Al Pasholka. This is our first Careers in Public Service panel. Now, I had the great honor of serving 3 terms in the Michigan House of Representatives, the last 2 as Chairman of Appropriations, and then they kicked me across the street to be the state budget director for a short time. And then I got to come back home, thankfully, and am now part of Connexus Group and the JMG family. So I've had the pleasure to work with all 4 of these folks. And let me just quickly. So while people like Senator Ollier sometimes get all the camera time and all of that, the people behind the scenes who really make things work are people like Becky, Chelsea, and Brandi that you're going to meet. They are really, really talented. So is the senator, but they're the people that really take these policies and then make them work for individuals across Michigan. So we really appreciate the work of everyone. And of course, policymakers like Senator Ollier, who brings great experience, a military background to his role as a legislator to make a difference in Michigan. So speaking of talented, I'd like to introduce my co-moderator for the session. His name is Nolan Henson. Now, Nolan and I have some things in common, and we have some things not in common. I'm from Saginaw, he's from Flint. I don't hold that against him. I went to Western, he goes to Central. That's okay. See, we're okay, right? So Nolan's the 2018 graduate of Flint Southwestern. He is currently attending CMU, as I indicated. He's majoring in sociology, nonprofit administration, as well as minoring in leadership. Nolan is also one of 2 alumni interns that we have working on our team. We're incredibly fortunate to have him, his insight, his youthful thinking and energy. Welcome, Nolan.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Al. I join Al in welcoming each of our panelists in today's session. For the audience members who wish to ask questions for our panelists, please use the chat function, and we will also be monitoring it throughout the session and have a reserved time at the end to answer these questions. To our youth joining today, know that this event is designed exclusively for you. At Youth Solutions, we are inspiring and connecting young people to a future beyond imagination. Some of you may find that a future in public service, and that's what today is about. In the last few minutes of this event, we'll be holding a drawing for a $25 Nike gift card and a $25 Walmart gift card. Any youth still in attendance will be eligible to win. If you wish to participate, please take the time to enter your name into the chat box. Specialists, if you are broadcasting this event in your classroom, please enter your youth name that will wish to participate at the end of the event.
All right, let's give everyone a chance to our panel to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Senator Ollier.
Unmute myself. So I'm Adam Ollier. I represent the 2nd Senate District, which covers about a quarter of the city of Detroit, all 5 Grosse Points, Hamtramck, Highland Park, and Harper Woods. Before this, I had the fun time of being a legislative staffer. I was the chief of staff for my predecessor. I worked in the mayor's office under Mayor Bing and was a vice president over at Hans Woodlands, and then in the nonprofit sector at the Michigan Fitness Foundation. And so I've had, I don't know, a bunch of different jobs, which I guess is indicative of people my age. I don't think I've been anywhere longer than 3 years in that space. But I think that's just kind of how things have changed, and you know, you go find new opportunities, but it's given me a really rich and robust set of experiences, which I really value and have been able to spend a lot of time with. I guess the thing I've been doing the longest is I've been in the Army. So I'm a first lieutenant in the Army Reserve and have been so for going on 6 years now.
Well, Senator, we hope you get 8 years in the Michigan Senate. How's that?
Hey, well, you know, I hope we can do even more than that. You know, I think we really got to address this term limits thing. It's a really irresponsible way of governing of getting rid of people as soon as they know how to do things. You know, it's frustrating that people say, hey, you've been doing this a long time, but they're counting all the time I had as a staffer. And it's like everyone I worked with a decade ago who was elected is now termed out. And most of those staff people are the only ones that know how things work.
And that's why a lot of us legislators rely on really smart, talented young people. And one of those is Becky Burkta. So Becky, if you could introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Al. I appreciate the welcome. Glad to be here today. I am the legislative director for the Speaker of the House, Jason Wentworth. He's a brand new speaker, just started in January. I manage legislation for him on behalf of the House and the caucus, the Republican caucus. So he is a Republican Speaker of the House, and we have 58 members. So I work for him, but I also have 57 other bosses that ask me to help them with bills and move policy. I am also the lead negotiator for the House Republicans with the Senate and also with the governor's office. So any bills that come up before the House on the floor, I help all of those members manage their priorities and the priorities of the House. Before that, I worked as budget director, and I also happened to work with the good Al Basholka. When he was a budget director, I was a deputy budget director, so I've known Al for quite a while. But been in Lansing for about 10 years and love it. Have done almost all of the different jobs you can do in Lansing. Everything from answering the phones to now sitting in the Capitol office and managing legislation for the Speaker. So glad to be here, and I'm very excited to share my story and help everyone else on this panel and the audience learn a little bit more about public sector.
We affectionately referred to Becky as Budget Becky at some point in time, and now she's running all the legislation in the House. And speaking of making things happen, and as we talk about JMG and talent and how we've really got to get people in Michigan back to work, one of the key people for that is someone named Chelsea Mates. And Chelsea is the State Administrative Manager for Employment and Training at the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Chelsea.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, as Al stated, I am with the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. I oversee the workforce innovation team, so we administer workforce development programming. Some of that workforce programming is focused on the youth population. So I've had the pleasure of working with JMG. I've been Team JMG since the very beginning. Really enjoy our partnership, and I've overseen the grant that solidifies our partnership with JMG for about 7 or 8 years now. So I look forward to hearing from everybody today. Thank you.
Chelsea does a great job. And this is the second panel I've been on with this next person who's I've known for a very long time. She's really a leader in education, training, is now in the governor's office, making a difference every day. Please welcome Brandi Johnson. Hey, Brandi.
Hi, Al. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you. My name is Brandi Johnson. I am the governor's education policy advisor. I've been with Governor Whitmer since March of 2019, so only just after she was elected over these last 2 years. And I serve as her policy advisor, which means I provide support on all issues related to early childhood education, K-12 education, higher education, and workforce development. I work closely with the budget office as we're developing a budget. I work closely with the legislature on legislation that is specific to education issues, and provide support for the governor when she is at events speaking about education issues, or with our communication teams when she's doing press conferences on education issues. So I'm a specialist. I have some expertise in education policy, and then help the governor in various aspects of her job. As you can imagine, these last 11 months or so have looked a lot different than the previous year. So my first year working for the governor, the focus was significantly different than what we've all experienced over the last 11 months, where my job has really primarily been focused on pandemic response from the perspective of schools and colleges and universities. But I've worked for government or nonprofit organizations my entire career, and am very committed to public service. So looking forward to speaking with all of you today.
And Brandi didn't mention, but she also ran the Michigan College Access Network for a while as well. So she's been involved in these issues with young people and providing opportunities for a long time. All right, let's get after it. And we'll go in reverse order. Brandi, I'm going to start with you. What was your motivation for wanting to work in government and public service? You mentioned you've been in there your entire career, so there must have been something in school or something that lit that fire.
Yeah, so interesting fact, I'm not from Michigan. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. Growing up, I remember my parents, especially my dad, talking to me about the newspaper. We'd read the newspaper together and read about current events and discuss them. And so from a very young age, I was very interested in public policy. In high school, I was on the debate team, which is pretty nerdy, but also got me interested in policy issues. I went to college at Arizona State University, and while I was there, I interned for the governor of Arizona, many governors ago, a very long time ago, as an undergrad, as a college student. And that's really what got me interested in education policy. After college, I actually, I joined Teach for America, and I became a third grade teacher. I'll say that's what got me really interested in not just policy, but specifically education policy, to make sure that all young people have equal opportunities to access the economy and have a great foundational education. So that's what ultimately led me to Michigan, where I went to graduate school. And that has been my path ever since. I always thought I would work for an elected official. So I've now worked for 3 governors, but there was a stint in there, like Al mentioned, where I started my own nonprofit organization called the Michigan College Access Network, or MCAN. And that was, that I will say was the best job I've ever had, really working directly with policymakers and stakeholders to provide a path for young people to make that transition from high school into post-secondary education. But it definitely started with me at a young age, and having internships where I was able to be exposed to public service made a big difference.
Yeah, I have a similar story. It was current events that actually got me interested in politics and policy. And Chelsea, how about you? What was your motivation to get into this line of work?
Well, I like a challenge. And when I hired into my position, we had a 15% unemployment rate in the state. And my position, one of the focuses at entry level was the dislocated worker population. So assisting those who had been dislocated from their jobs and helping to get them back to work. So I looked at that as a major opportunity, a great way to get my foot in the door with the state. I majored in business, but I've always really liked economics. So I was interested in that aspect of the position as well. And then additionally, something that I don't think people talk about a lot is there is a really good work-life balance with the state that, you know, working my way through college and shortly thereafter, I hadn't really experienced in the industries that I was working in. So I was really looking forward to that. So that was part of the motivation as well.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. Becky, let's, other than make me look good, what was your motivation to get in state government?
So mine is a little different. I didn't actually see myself ending up here. So it was as simple as, you know, wanting to feel impactful and make change, and learning that working for the state, working for the legislature, you come in contact with people who are looking for change, looking for solutions to problems all the time, and every day is different. And so my first job was constituent relations director, answering the phones, people calling in and saying, I have an issue with my property taxes. How do I find that, Becky? I have a question about my Medicaid. I'm on unemployment and I can't get my benefits. What can I do to solve that problem? And I found that that was the most fulfilling part of the job, and that's what's motivated me since, has been finding all of those creative solutions, and it keeps me coming back every day. So I think that's probably the biggest reason why public services has been motivating and wanting to be here.
And I think that's a common theme we're going to find is constituent relations or customer service or helping people solve problems. And Senator, you're up next. What was your motivation? And you've been on this path for a while.
So I am, I guess, in that rare breed of, I knew what I wanted to do when I was very little because my dad set me down when I was 10. And I think you know this, Al, but my dad was a Detroit firefighter. And when I was 10 years old, he had a very, what I guess would be an awkward conversation for most, where he told me that I could never be a firefighter, that I did not have that healthy bit of fear that brought him home. And it's a really important, like, it sounds crazy, but like, it's a really important part of being a firefighter, of knowing that there are people that you can save and people that you can't. And at 10, he sat me down and said, you don't have that in you. You do not have the capacity to say that there are people that you can't save. And that doesn't, that is not a good result. So it's this kind of funny moment where I'm like, all right, well, if Dad said I can't do that, I'm like, how do I take care of everybody? And so it was growing up in the Black community, growing up in my neighborhood. I lived in a space where people had zero trust in elected officials. They're like, oh, they're the worst. They're so, and I'm like, wait, but they make all these decisions, right? So I sit around the dinner table and my dad is talking about how so-and-so got hurt or this thing happened because somebody wanted to save money and not lives. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of the people who run in. And, like all good young people, I followed my father's directions explicitly. And when I went to college, I became a volunteer firefighter and, joined the military because I want to go in, right? Like I believe that there are places and things that we should be doing across the world, and to be able and to be unwilling, I think is wrong. And so I always want to be in a position to do the good that I think needs to be done. And there are lots of ways for folks to do that. But after having been a staffer, and for any of you who have been staffers in the past, you can only try and convince your boss that the right thing is the right thing so many times before you're like, I just want to do what I want to do. And I think it's right. And it's funny being on the other side of that, where you're like, yeah, but you can't do that. Like we're not gonna be able to get that done. And what we need day in and day out is people who are like, nope, we are going to get that done. It is worth risking everything for it, because that's the only way we change. And we see the change that we look forward to is people saying, this is worth everything to me. Stuff I got here.
Yeah, there's a couple of common themes here. One is you got to have a servant's heart, really, to do this kind of work. And I was a congressional staffer for a while, and trying to be honest with your boss on some really tough issues can sometimes not be that easy, but good staffers will tell both sides of the story and be honest with their boss. Nolan, you got the next round when we talk about some of the challenges that our panel faces.
Definitely. So I'd love to hear about some of your highs and lows. So what have been some challenges that have faced you all in your careers? We can start off with Becky.
Some challenges. Communicating with people that don't always agree with you, and being having empathy and trying to understand where they're coming from and what motivates them on an issue, on a particular policy or decision. In everyday life with working in the legislature, there are bills that representatives and senators sponsor that they're passionate about, that they have someone in their community that had a horrible situation and they're trying to make some good out of that, similar to what Senator Ollier just said. those things happen every day, and trying to come together to understand where people are coming from, how you can help them achieve their goals, but you're not always going to agree on things. And I think that learning to communicate with people that may not see the same things that you see is probably one of the most challenging parts of working in public policy, because we have a lot of personalities and a lot of people that come from different backgrounds and have different ideas, and those are what make the policy process also the most amazing process that we have, because you have all of those different sort of facets that make policy what's great for the state. You can't make policy with just one person. So while it's challenging, it's also probably the greatest aspect of public policy that we have.
Nice, nice. I then want to pass over the question over to Senator Ollier, then Chelsea, and then Brandi. So.
Cool. Yeah, so I think every day getting to make a difference, right? So just this weekend, there was an incident in Grosse Pointe Park where a neighbor put a KKK flag up facing their Black neighbor. And, there was a time where this would have been handled very differently, right? So there was a time where only Black people would have rallied and said that this was unacceptable. And what we saw was, in a majority white community, white neighbors saying, hey, this is unacceptable in my community, and them elevating the voices of Black people, right? And this moment where everything is so charged and all these things are happening, it's important for us to be able to stand up and say, these things are acceptable and these things aren't. And it was nice in that moment to be able to be a part of it, right? And so I talked about what happened to Jadana on the Senate floor last week. And people are like, yeah, that's right. And Republicans are like, yeah, that's right. That's unacceptable. And Democrats are like, yeah, that's right. Unacceptable, across the spectrum. And so having those moments where you are, you maybe think you're going to have to go convince people, and everyone else is similarly exacerbated and frustrated. Like, there's no way that that's acceptable. Those moments are good because we know we aren't as far away as some people might think we are. And so it's really trying to build on those moments to say, hey, this thing is like this other thing. And as we talk about how we know that it's unacceptable to put a KKK flag up in front of your Black neighbors, there are similar things that we aren't doing to protect LGBT communities, particularly transgender, women and Black transgender women, and the rise of anti-Semitism. Like, there are all these kind of things that we have to rally behind and support. And all of those are built on social norms, not laws for the most part, and recognizing that there are necessary protections that people need, and being able to leverage and be in a position to talk about those moments and those kind of things in ways that you otherwise couldn't, right? Like, it's not just spitting in the wind. When I talked about it, news crews are going to pick it up. They're going to have an event they have to talk about, and people have to respond and take a stand. And I was just glad that in this moment, more people stood with us than with the KKK.
Yep, Chelsea.
Thank you, Nolan. I would say the biggest challenge in our line of work is that our hearts are much larger than our budgets. So we want to help everyone. We want to reach every kid. We want to reemploy every worker. We want to upskill every adult that we come in contact with, but we work with mainly federally funded programs. So of course there's a lot of red tape, and there is a challenge to innovate, but we still work as hard as we can to innovate and find flexibility. But there are occasions where, you want to march right over to DC and talk to whoever wrote that law that was maybe a little too restrictive, and explain the impact of what those restrictions actually look like on the ground.
All righty, and then over to Brandi.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this last year has been the most challenging in my career. I think a huge challenge when working in public service is crisis management. This is, obviously no one signed up for this pandemic. No one was prepared for the pandemic, but there's no doubt that it was incredibly challenging. Preparing the governor to say out loud that there would be no in-person school for the remainder of the school year last year was devastating, heartbreaking. The last thing she would want, we'd want for any kid. We know how important being in school is. So that just is different. I will say, Chelsea mentioned work-life balance. There definitely has not been that over the last year. For those of us that are working in the governor's office, there were, last spring in particular, when we knew nothing about this virus, I would say, a Saturday or a Sunday did not look different than a Tuesday or Thursday in terms of my work. I was working 7 days a week, often 18, 19 hours a day. I have two little kids. They were 2 and 4 when the pandemic started. They're 3 and 5. And so that, that was really tough to be so absent from them. In terms of the highs, I will say some of the biggest highs I've had while in this job is just working with constituents. And I know Becky and Senator Ollier mentioned this, is like hearing from a constituent about a real problem that they're having and then actually helping them find a solution. So there's been a lot of times where parents have reached out saying, I've lost my job, I can't afford the internet, or Comcast just turned off my internet, but I know how important it is for my kid to go to school. Is there anything you can do? And I was able to work with partners to get those families hotspots, and that just feels really rewarding, knowing that you can help someone. Right before the pandemic, a dad had reached out to me who had a senior in high school, a son with special education needs, but was really passionate about swimming. And athletes with disabilities were being excluded from the Michigan High School Athletic Association state championships in swimming. And so I was able to pick up the phone and call the MHSAA and have a discussion about, is there a path where we could help athletes with special needs participate in the state championship meet? And after many, many meetings, it worked out. And this kid got to participate in the state meet, which was his lifelong dream. And so those types of, they may seem small, but those highs when you're actually able to help a real Michigander with a real problem makes all the difference, and can kind of keep you up at a higher level for weeks, even if the rest of the world feels like it's burning around you.
Yes, we love to hear it. So for students like myself that have similar passions as you all, like impacting education, filling back into our communities, what advice would you give students interested in careers in the public sector? We can stick with the same order and start off with Becky, then Senator Ollier, and then pass it over to Chelsea, and then Brandi again.
So I started off by saying I didn't see myself here. So I think I have a little bit of a different path than maybe some. But I would say anyone who may be interested in working in the public sector, it doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to follow a certain path. There is no certain path. I started because I had a friend who was volunteering on a Senate campaign, and she roped me into volunteering at a fundraiser, and the rest is history. I started applying in Lansing and got my start that way. You start from the bottom and you work your way up. There's no way that you can get anywhere without putting in those little, internships, volunteering, putting yourself out there, making yourself a little vulnerable, and learning all of those hard lessons before you get to a place where maybe you are feeling like you're reaching that point where you're feeling impactful, like I mentioned earlier. So I would say that number one, volunteering, getting your feet wet, but also the network. Your networking is going to be your greatest asset. So I'm sure a lot of you hear the word networking, and maybe it's a word that you hear, but you don't necessarily understand what it means. But your network is a spider web of people that may be interconnected to you or to someone you know. Pointing at Al on the screen here, I mean, you may not know me, but you may know Al, and Al knows me. Al knows Brandi. Using the people that you know in your group to expand your network of people will only benefit you in situations like this, where you're looking to branch out into the public sector, or quite honestly, anywhere, even if it's not the public sector. You never know who someone knows that might be able to help you. So be as open and honest about your goals as you can, and know that it might be a little clunky and a little bumpy along the way, but learning some of those lessons and getting your feet wet, and using the folks around you that want to see you succeed is the greatest way that you can be successful in anything, public sector or private sector, business, you name it. So, yeah.
And every place is a small town. And the
Yes.
reason I say that is that person that you diss in the hallway today might be the HR person that you're sitting across from 10 years from now. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I mean, I think to Al's point, I was a Senate staffer 12 years ago, and now I'm a senator. And there are people I remember from when I was a staffer that do not remember me or didn't remember me as a staffer. And they're like, "Oh, you worked at yes, I worked at the Capitol. I remember who you are. We had interactions, lots of them." And, like those kind of things make a difference in how you do these kind of things. So I did Michigan Youth in Government when I was in high school. That's how I got my very first job. I was sitting at a table with, and Al's the only person who's going to remember these people, with Buzz Thomas and Virgil Smith and Martha Scott. And I happened to be sitting next to Buzz Thomas. Buzz Thomas is one of my very best friends, right? He was he's the godfather to my youngest son. We used to go over his house for Christmas Eve, but he also gave me my first job. And until just recently, that job was still on my resume because time, space, opportunity. And people are like, "Oh, you worked for Buzz?" "Oh yeah, I worked for Buzz." And it still opens doors, and continuing to have those relationships make a big deal, right? So when as I always say to young people, when somebody comes and speaks to you and they say, "Give me a call," 90% of the 95%, 98% of the people in that room are not going to call them. They're going to give you their number and say, "Hey, reach out to me." And the people who do make a difference, they make an impact. And if you just one time develop a relationship like that with someone who's gonna make a difference, you develop a lifelong friend. You develop someone who's gonna be an advocate for you, that will also work for you. And you need doors open, because very few people get their first job because they're the best. If you got your first job because you were the best, then you should have been applying for a better job because you were more qualified, because somebody had an inside track on that job and you were just so much better that they couldn't justify not hiring their friend. And so if you want to get that good job first, it's because you know somebody, because there are 100 people who meet the qualifications for the job, but the person that they hire is going to be the one that they know, who they've had that relationship with, who's gone and knocked doors or done whatever the case may be. And that's the difference. That's the thing that we talk about with privilege. And it's the thing that JMG gives you an opportunity to do, because you get these relationships that other kids don't have. And it gives people a chance to say, "Oh, I know Nolan. He's a good guy." Absolutely. Whatever we got to do, that's our guy. He's going to get the thing. It doesn't matter if Jennifer or Becky or I am actually better. They know Nolan and they want Nolan, and they're going to hire Nolan, and they're going to be happy about it. So if you want the job, you need to do the things necessary for people to be like, "Yeah, Adam, it's my guy. I know him." And that's everything in this business, in every business.
Definitely. Then over to Chelsea.
definitely agree with the networking and the getting your foot in the door. A great way to get your foot in the door is the state of Michigan has a really strong student intern occupation where you can earn a really decent wage. They pay really well and they work around any of your post-secondary classes. So that's definitely something to take a look at. Realizing that we have, the Department of Natural Resources, if you're interested in the outdoors, or Health and Human Services, you can really start to build relationships in the areas of your interest with those positions. And then, absolutely with the strong networking and the reaching out to people, if you're interested, in state government, reach out to me, and if we're not the right area, I'll connect you to someone in the department that you're interested in, and we can, perhaps set up a job shadow, because it's always good to get that experience and then start building those relationships early on. And then as you advance in your career, it's always good. It's, an informal mentorship opportunity for everyone.
So a couple of things. I would be remiss if I didn't say that first and foremost, you need to pursue post-secondary education. So the reason I joined the governor's administration in the first place is because she made such a strong commitment to post-secondary educational attainment, which is what I'm really passionate about. One thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about myself is that I'm a first generation college going student. No one in my family had ever gone to college. My dad was a firefighter. My mom was a cashier at the Home Depot. So we, came from modest means. No one had even stepped foot on a college campus. But I had really supportive adults in my life that pushed me to, and because I went to college, it will, fundamentally change the trajectory of my family, generations to come moving forward. It won't, it was a question about whether or not I would go to college growing up because it was so foreign to my family, but I don't think that will be a question with my own children. And so first and foremost, I think it's really important that you earn that credential, earn that degree, whether it's a technical certificate, an applied associate degree, a bachelor's degree, or beyond. A high school diploma isn't enough to compete like it once was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. You really do need to focus on pursuing post-secondary. So I had to get my plug in for that. But once you've completed your post-secondary credential, one of the, my biggest pieces of career advice for young people is really to consider going into literally a service job right after you're done. I mentioned I did Teach for America, which is a program that places recent college graduates into high need schools to be a teacher. So I taught third grade in a low-income neighborhood in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it fundamentally changed my life. It was a phenomenal opportunity. And so for 2 years, I poured everything I had into my 8-year-olds that I worked with in Vegas. It gave me so much more perspective. It gave me some life experience, and it really made it more clear what I wanted to do with my life. So there's lots of programs like Teach for America. Become an AmeriCorps member. An AmeriCorps member is somebody that serves, in a public service position. They're paid a stipend, and they also receive some student loan forgiveness. When I was at the Michigan College Access Network, we ran a program called Advise Michigan. And that's a program that places full-time college advisors in high school. So it's like Teach for America, but it's more like a school counselor that's really focused on high school students making that transition into post-secondary. You can do the Peace Corps if you want to, live in a different country. You could join the Peace Corps, and what a phenomenal eye-opening opportunity. So go to college and then really consider doing something like a Peace Corps, an AmeriCorps, a Teach for America position. I think it really helps, gain some perspective and helps you on your path to whatever you want to do in the long term.
That was a great plug for a program called 60 by 30. If all of you are familiar with that, or you might see that in the news, that's the governor's trying to get 60% credential by the year 2030. And that's what Brandi was talking about. Okay, in 60 seconds, here's the final question. We could listen to you guys all day. Some of the best advice I've ever heard. Thinking back, now some of you are going to have to think back longer than others. Me, it'd be a long time. Thinking back to high school, what did you know, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you would have known in high school? Becky?
That it's okay to not like civics class and economics class, at least in high school, but that you can still make it in state government because you get to live it every day. I think sometimes school doesn't always connect with you, right? That doesn't mean that you're not cut out for other amazing opportunities to learn on your feet and get the ball rolling other ways. I'm a learn by doing sort of person. I also liked school, so I guess I can't really say that I didn't love school. I love learning in class, but also, in person. But I have to say, civics and economics were two of the classes that I just was not geeked about. So I think I would always just go back to, it doesn't have to be perfect. There is no right answer to how you get anywhere. And the minute you pigeonhole yourself on something, as far as, well, I have to be good at this in order to get this outcome, get this job, do this. It's not the case. It's not the case, and we see it every day with every other person that we work with. I work with a great group of people that all have different degrees, and some of them never saw themselves here, and some of them saw themselves here from day one. But it's okay. It's okay to not necessarily know what you want to do in high school, but feel it out and keep working at what motivates you.
Senator, my thing was in high school, I was probably more interested in sports than academics. I wish I would have probably taken academics a little more seriously, but sports have kept me eligible.
So, I have a unique time as we talk about where we were, what we would have said. So that would have been 18 years for me. So all of your seniors, I graduated from high school in 2003. So the year you were born, probably, or less than that. But I think the thing for me is relationships matter, right? And when you're in high school, you are kind of straight and narrow path of like, this is what I need to do to get where I want to go. And I think it's really important that you think about the people you surround yourself with and those that you interact with, because if you're going to run for office, those first people you know from high school, those are going to be the ones who help for you. When you're talking about looking at a job or changing professions 5 or 10 or 15 years down the line, the people you went to school with are going to be the ones who vouch for you, who say, oh yeah, so-and-so, they're going to be a great, we got to get them. They've been doing great things over at GM. Like, those are the people who are going to be following your career and will be connecting the dots and thinking about other ways that they can be helpful if you've maintained those relationships. So think about building strong relationships and really sewing into good people, because the people who you surround yourself with are your network. And so how are you doing a good job of building those amongst the people you trust the most and going forward?
So I was class of 1978. Anyway.
Almost.
Yeah, that's a lot older than me, Al. I mean,
That was my dad's high school graduating class.
Oh, got him.
Hey, disco was in, and I had long blonde hair, and I wore cork heels. But anyway, Chelsea.
Chelsea, I think he
Thank
was
you.
making a joke about you because you have long blonde hair. Is he saying you're wearing cork heels? You should get him. Get him.
The optics of that are just priceless, Al, so thank you so much. So, yeah, something that I wish that I would have known in high school was that I didn't have to have all of the answers. And secret, you can change your major once you get to college. So that was something that, you know, our career counselor in high school was very set on everybody's going to go either into college or into the military. And that was great. That was kind of it as far as our guidance. And then so you get to college, and I was a computer science major when I first started out, and that just didn't end up working out for me. I switched my major about 3 different times. I love what I do now. I'm glad that I had that experience, but luckily I had a career counselor in college who drove me to taking my, you know, the prerequisites and the basic courses in the first couple of years while I figured things out. And I'm very thankful for that. And, you know, if it gets you where you need to go, do some of that exploration and take your time. But I feel like when you're in high school, there's just an immense amount of pressure that really doesn't need to be there to choose one career path to go towards.
That's great advice. And Brandi?
I guess I would say fake it till you make it. Like, I mentioned I was a first generation college going student. And so I didn't know what I didn't know about moving into a dorm, what I would need, how to register for classes, what credit hours were, what lab was, what, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's okay. And I think self-confidence can really help you get through those through those situations where you're not comfortable, where you don't have those social capital networks built up yet to be able to be able to proceed. So ask a lot of questions, ask those questions confidently. Don't be intimidated. Never start a sentence with, this might be a stupid question, or this might be a dumb question. There's no such thing. Ask your question, get your answer, and be confident in your ability to succeed.
Thank you, Brandi. That's awesome. We are just about out of time. I want to take this opportunity to thank Senator Ollier and Brandi and Chelsea for joining us. This was a fascinating 45 minutes. It really a lot of great advice for young people to take with them today. Big thing is you got to have a servant's heart. You got to want to serve and help people. And I think all 4 of you embody that, and it comes through loud and clear. So I was supposed to say something witty, but what I would like to say is I think sometimes that folks who work in government or work in state government, I think, get a bad rap. And I've said this to state employees, and I said it to the state budget office when I worked there, is that there are tons of talented people working hard every day, and they know more about these topics than people can imagine. And we appreciate your work and what you do and trying to make Michigan a better and safer place every day. So thank you for your efforts, and thanks for what you do. And Nolan, I'm going to send it to you, and you're going to give away some money.
Yes.
That's a great way to end it up.
Yes. So we have finished our drawing for the $25 Nike gift card and the $25 Walmart gift card. So our 2 winners are Natwan Williams has won the $25 Nike gift card, and Alexis Wilkes has won the $25 Walmart gift card. You all can private message me on here with your email address so we can get those sent out to you.
So again, on behalf of everyone at Youth Solutions and Jobs for Michigan's graduates, thanks for joining us today, and make it a great day in Michigan. Thanks.